Hey, all you Gopher Frog partners and experts out there. This is Brian Crawford from the University of Georgia. Today, I just wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to answer the next two expert exercises that we'd like you to do. And these will really fill in key pieces of information that we need to continue the work that we've already done and build a decision-making framework that allows us to make better management decisions for this species. So I know most of you are probably stuck inside like I am. You'd probably rather be out here looking for gopher frogs, but this will be a productive way to use that time inside, I think. So first, we just wanted to give you a brief set of instructions on this first page in the Excel workbook. The main thing to keep in mind is that all the instructions on each subsequent sheet will be in these dark green boxes. There's additional details and instructions in comment bubbles at the tops of each column. This will just give you a little bit more context of what we're asking and what to think about. And then all of your answers will go in cells that are light orange. So in exercise 1, we're really just focused on estimating costs of each management action. This was something that we started estimating 2 years ago in an SDM workshop in Gainesville, and I've actually provided those starting estimates from that workshop here to give you sort of a starting point. But revisit those estimates for cost of each action listed in this table and modify them as you need to, or enter new estimates if we didn't have them already. Now we know cost might vary a lot between place to place or by some other factor. So ideally, even though we want a single best sort of average cost per site or per acre per some unit, we know that this can vary. So use the comment column to tell me, maybe a high and low estimate of cost, or if it varies by some factor, you can give me multiple estimates of cost, such as the cost of burning on state lands versus the cost of burning on national forest lands or something like that. And I would encourage you to reach out to other managers and people in your agency that might be able to also answer these cost estimates a little bit better than we could. So reach out to whoever you need to, but basically you're just estimating the cost of each action per some unit area usually. And finally, for exercise 2, we have given you a chance to go through each site in your area of work and tell us if there are any actions that are just not appropriate at that site and that we shouldn't evaluate in our decision framework. So I'd say just to orient you to the sheet, the first thing you should do is go to column B and filter out the sites to just include in the list the ones in your area of work. So let's say we're filling this out for South Carolina. We'd select those sites, and now the list becomes a lot more manageable. Now for each site, for each row, go through the columns in E through K, and basically you're just going to look at the question we've given you and go down each column and fill it out, respond to that question for each site. Briefly, in column E, we're asking for each site, is there any where it's just not appropriate to think about land acquisitions or gaining easements? For example, the gopher frog population might be embedded in a much larger area that's already protected, like a national forest. Maybe in that case, it's not appropriate to evaluate additional land acquisitions and things like that. So if that's the case, use the drop downs that we've given you to select not appropriate. Otherwise, you can leave a cell blank, and that means that we'll go ahead and evaluate those options at that site. For columns F and G, these are focused on any upland or wetland management actions that are not appropriate at that site. You've seen I've gone ahead and filled in for any site outside of the range of the gopher tortoise. We're not going to consider translocating tortoises there. So things like that tell us if there are any actions that are not appropriate for that site. And again, you can use the drop-down list that we've given you to answer these questions and say specific actions that are not appropriate. One thing to note, if you need to put in multiple actions that are not appropriate at site, there's no way to do that with these drop-down lists, so just type them in manually and we'll figure it out. So sites moving to the right, columns H and I focus on site prep that might be needed before burning can be implemented at that site. So site H is focused on any upland management prep that might be needed before burning. Again, leaving blank means that the site's ready for burning right now. Otherwise, you can say, yeah, the habitat's really bad. We might need to thin and restore it before we can burn. Tell us about that. And then column I is telling us if there's any management actions that are needed for the wetlands before we can adequately burn them, such as mechanical duff removal. Finally, in columns J and K, we've filled in most of these, but just want you to review our answers, make sure we did it right. In column J, we've said if the site is unoccupied or occupied with gopher frogs currently, and in site K, we've copied the estimates of the number of years out of every 10 that there are expected to be breeding and viable reproduction at that site. So review those answers, double check us, and finally, in column L, provide any comments that you have that will provide us more information on what is or is not appropriate to evaluate at this site. So there you have it. Thank you so much again for filling this out and continuing to contribute to this process. We look forward to receiving your answers and then meeting with you via webinar after this, and we'll send more details at the time. So thank you so much again, and have a great day.